Okay, looks like we're recording. Welcome to the webinar. Today is December 4th and it's 10:05 a.m. And our topic today is getting your marketing super organized and focused. My name is Sunil Bhaskaran. My partner, Bill Belew, is on hand. He's working remotely, but if you have any questions for him, he'll be happy to answer them as well. So I'm very excited to be here. And again, welcome. And let's get going here. All right. So, just a couple of logistical things. Um, just so you don't have any distractions. I want this time to be your time. A lot of us are really distracted by the internet and other things that come up to distract us, like cell phone calls, etc. Even I have that from time to time, but I shut off my cell phone or put it to silent and I close the door. And I'm going to invite you to do the same thing here as well. You want to turn off your Skype, your email, iTunes, or any other programs and silence your phone, close the door, give yourself the gift of time for yourself today. Excuse me. And, to discover the secrets that could make a huge difference, if not a breakthrough for you. And that's really part of the trick, of staying focused is to, remove all possible distractions, right? So you want to start by following this example today. I want to really address people who are on this call and make sure that this is valuable for you. I want to ask a couple of questions to get you thinking here. Have you created a business or have an idea currently for one that you wish to be successful at? Have you been in business for a while? Have you been working in marketing for a while? Are you fighting the good business game, right? Most of us, if not all of us, are doing our best with what we have and trying to really elevate our business game and make it even better than how it was before. A lot of times it's a noble cause. Sometimes we find, it could be a little stressful perhaps. Have you been in business a while, but the business marketing and sales is just not quite where it could be or should be? You know what, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable my video so I can increase the bandwidth because I'm getting some some disturbance here online. So I'm just going to have the text in front of me. That's okay. So the question is, have you been in business a while, but the business marketing and sales is just not quite where it could be or should be? Okay. And, are you happy with your profits and your results? If not, what has stopped you? And I want you to think about what are the things that could stop you. So I want this to be relevant to you, this presentation to be relevant to you in your life and your business. And, the practices that I present here, my intention is that it be useful, but not only useful, but actually produce something extraordinary, an extraordinary business result for yourself. So you're in the right place if you want to create a sustainable and proven system that generates a large audience who engages with you and buys what you sell, right? So you're in the right place if you're spending too much time spinning your wheels in your marketing and business and seriously wish to make a change. So really, if you're looking to make a change in your life, sometimes change takes a while. It may take a couple of months. Sometimes, it is a matter of weeks. We've seen it in certain clients. I'm not promising any kind of immediate return. But if you are spending too much time spinning your wheels and seriously wish to make a change, and the second part I really do mean seriously wish to make a change, then you're certainly in the right place. Okay, and you're certainly in the right place if you wish to sell more. It's almost ridiculously funny that I go to lots of presentations and I lead presentations, live presentations with salespeople. And usually selling more is usually at the bottom of the totem pole. And I don't know why, it's quite uncanny. But of course, the truth is we wish to sell more and you're certainly in the right place if you wish to do that. You're in the right place if you're sick and tired of being overwhelmed. And, a lot of time overwhelm is something we try to cover up, right? We try to say, things are going pretty well, but the truth is we're kind of behind. Or we feel behind. I think the latter is more true. We feel behind rather than we are behind. So we want to address that today as well. In the right place if you're new to business and wish to make a solid, successful launch, avoiding unnecessary mistakes. You're in the right place if you want to have a highly engaged and inspired audience who buys. Uh, and again, if you're in the right place if you wish for more satisfying results in a lifestyle that reflects that. After all, what's the point if you produce results and you don't really have the lifestyle that you really want? It's the lifestyle that really matters, and something that I learned. I hope to relate to you in this webinar. We want all that, but the reality is there are really three real fears for most people. The first is that I will fail. It's always in the background for most people. I mean, it comes up even for me from time to time. The only difference for me and for people like me and Bill is that we've been around the blocks a couple of times, and we know what that feeling is, and we can handle it and move on. The second fear is that success implies burnout. And for a lot of us, how we were brought up was that to be successful implies that you have to work really extra hard. Now, Bill and I have got nothing against working hard. Uh, and, but there are two kinds of working hard. There's the working hard that burns you out, and the working hard that produces results and puts money in your pocket. And the question is, which one would you rather have, right? Obviously. The other thing that comes up the question is, can I trust myself? And this plays a big part in overwhelm, because when you start distrusting yourself, or distrusting a process, or distrusting even the numbers that you see, then we start operating in non-reality. We make up stuff about what the business is. We make up stuff about why people are not returning our calls. We make up stuff about why people are not buying. We make up stuff about why people are not responding in our marketing presentations. And so it's really important to learn to trust yourself. For the majority of you, I would say, in my 24 years of coaching and mentoring experience, I can tell you, the majority of people, and I put myself in here too, being a human being, our tendency is to not trust yourself, and this is where some of the mischief can come in. And so the question is, what about you? What are the things that you're dealing with? What are the things that you're challenged by? What are your goals and objectives that you want? Have you made these objectives clear for yourself? Are they transparent for you and for your team if you work in a team? Or if you're a business owner, is it transparent to the people around you who work for you or with you? What you will learn today. There are three things. One, practices to stop the overwhelm. We'll get to that. Two, practices to produce satisfaction daily. And three, a concrete pathway to a breakthrough in business, even if you're starting out. So we're going to actually give you a complete plan that we work with our clients as well. And like I said, I'm going to try and give you as much as possible today, but given our time frame, of course, it's not possible to give everything, but I'll give as much as I can based on your questions, etc. There's a special offer gift at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned. I think it's a great gift, and I look forward to giving it to you or offering it to you. Just a couple of things about our recent breakthroughs, Bill and I, and I'll share a lot about Bill and I as we go through this webinar. I find it more interesting to talk about us in the light of what you want to learn, rather than give a very formal presentation or formal introduction of ourselves. But I want to share a little bit about recent breakthroughs so you get a sense of who you're working with here in terms of Bill and I. Our meetup size right now for both Bill and I is now more than 16,500. I'm sure Bill is piping up right now, though he's muted, and it's probably way more than that. Our combined Rolodex is way more than 22,000. I know that for sure. Our last launch that we did, we had a full group of clients in 2 weeks. Actually, it was about 2 weeks, and we made more than $100,000 in a 6-week period. Bill's forum and his site gets about 90 million hits. Again, in our last launch, which was in September, we started our group coaching program in September, and at least 3 of our clients right now are doubling traffic already. They're quite ahead of the plan, Usually it takes a little longer, but they're already doubling traffic about every month. So that should tell you something about the efficacy of what we work on. There's no hype to it. It takes some work to do. There is an investment required of time and some thinking. Nothing comes for free, I don't think. But these are some of the results that we're producing. Our network is growing organically. By organic, I mean we're not paying for any advertising. Um, it's growing naturally, but there's some intention behind the natural growth. Bill's creating articles. We are posting meetups. We're generating all the things that we train people to do, and I'll be sharing as many of those practices here with you. Okay. Um, okay. But I want to share, at some point, and I'm going to share a little bit about myself, and I promise you we're going to get to the content. But as I share myself, I want you to listen for how I really applied some of the things that I'm going to share later today to my own life. And maybe you can take some nuggets for yourself as well in applying it to your life. So it was not all great. If you see this photograph, this was taken about, I think, 1991. And as you can see, I had a very thick mustache. I don't have the mustache. I haven't had the mustache in a long time. And I had a very thick frown, which you can't see because I had my hair covering it. But I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I just, I had been working for a while as an engineer, but I really wanted to get ahead in business. So I started up a firm, a consulting firm, which comprised of me. And I was a software engineer, and I was looking to really build my business up. And I quickly started bumping up against some issues. I mean, first thing was, I didn't know how to really sell, although I thought I could, but I wasn't really good at selling. And I tried door knocking a little bit and was failing. I was getting very discouraged. And then what happened was I met my first mentor and my coach in about 1990 actually. And when I saw him present, I knew that I wanted to work with him. He was excellent. He knew how to coach. I saw him coaching other people. He was an excellent marketer and salesperson. This was in a period where there was no internet. There was no internet marketing at all, pretty much none. But some of the basics were there in terms of how to focus, how to get things going. One of the challenges I did have at that point was I was trying many things, and I had a full-time job, and I was working during my lunch hour, and I made arrangements with my boss to get off work early so I could go market, attend networking events, etc. But it was not really generating anything. And one of the things that I heard my mentor say in one of his presentations was emphasizing the need to really identify your target market, to really get focused on where you want to focus on, and to make sure that this market made sense to you and your personality with what services and strengths you had. And it made a lot of sense to me. Of course, a lot of it's like, of course, this is not what I need to do. But he presented it and talked about it and languaged it in a very clear manner that made sense. And he promised a high degree of organization. I and interviewed some of his clients, and they were doing extraordinarily well. So I knew that this was something I needed to do. I knew that I was spinning my wheels, and I needed an organized way and a dialogue partner on a daily basis to make sure I stayed on track and stopped doing all this stupid stuff that I was doing that was not getting me anywhere. So I hired him, which took a bit of work, to be honest, because he didn't want to work with me. He thought I was a flake initially, which I probably was. Even though I was hardworking, I was flaky from time to time. That was part of the issue. But eventually he did work with me, and he charged me quite a bit of money, but he said, you got to think about return on investment, both in terms of your time and your money. And this is something else that I want to really make sure I impart to you, because when you're looking at focusing in your market, you must look at how and where you're spending your money and time, and if that money and time is really bringing you a return on investment. If you're not measuring that, or if you're not looking to optimize that from day to day, you can have all the great ideas and tactics in the world, and even strategies in the world, and even a good plan. But if you cannot learn how to focus and select your priorities, you're already dust. So my coach actually started working with me on a daily basis, and make a long story short, in a couple of actually in a couple of months, I was already making a return on investment on what I paid him, which was I was paying him about $1,000 a month, so it's about 12,000 a year, and I was making only about 40,000 as an engineer at that time. So you can imagine, I had to pull, I had to get, I had to make money happen and to pay him. But I was glad I did because I made the investment, and that put a fire underneath my butt to get going even further. So the first breakthrough really occurred in towards the end of 1995. I actually started a company with a business partner, and we sold it. And with the money I made, I actually thought I would take 3 months off. It turned out to be a year and a half that I took off. And it was really a great time. But I learned a couple of things. The first thing I learned was you got to put strategy first. Strategy is important, important, important. If you're not figuring out who you want to market to, how you want to market to them, where the real money is, and this is a key thing too, where the joy is going to be in marketing to people. Because I rather market to people and sell to people who find my service useful, who are responsive, who have a clear need that's driving them. So you got to start with strategy first. And the next thing is to plan, but you don't want to get embroiled in planning. I know a lot of you, I say this fairly because, especially in Silicon Valley, where most of us are, there's a tendency to plan and get boiled down in the implement or the software development if you're a startup, tech startup. But we get embroiled in the planning. And what I found out was have a rough plan and then start executing, start selling, testing out markets. That's where the rubber starts meeting the road, and you can make adjustments to your plan a lot faster. Focus takes practice. And this was a daily practice. It took a while. I thought I was pretty good in focus, but the truth was I wasn't. There's something, I think it's called the Kronecker effect, if my memory serves me right, in psychology, which is, well, at least a psychological fact, if there's any such thing, but based on studies that most people overestimate their abilities, including the ability to focus. And focus, takes a lot of practice. And your ability to focus is what's going to drive your execution. And the focus is both on a day-to-day, through month-to-month, through year-to-year experience. You got to really be clear on what your objectives are and making sure that your activity, at least in a big part of the day when you're working, is directed towards those objectives. It should be objective-based. The fourth lesson was how to mitigate risk versus return on investment in time and money investment. Now, I wish I underlined the time here. The time investment in your assessment of return on investment is very important. Even if today you were to list out all the things that you are planning on doing for the next week and look to see what the return on investment would be. So how much time are you going to invest in each of those things that you plan for the next week? What do you think the return in terms of money would be for you if you were to spend those hours? And, if your hourly rate is, let's say $200 an hour, and so if you're spending 2 hours in that, are you going to make, at least a couple of times the $400 that you more or less invested into that project? These are things that you want to look at quite seriously, because these are the things that will help you focus much better. Now, I acknowledge that sometimes it's hard to measure that. You have to guess a little bit. But here's the thing. As you keep guessing what your return on investment is over time, it's uncanny, but how accurate you can get as time goes on. With my 24 years of experience, I can really tell more or less what my return on investment would be on a lot of projects or even phone calls that I take with certain people. So you want to learn to mitigate the risk that is, the biggest risk is really your opportunity cost, what you're foregoing by taking on a project. So you want to look at the potential opportunity cost. If you spend time on project X, which give you $400 versus project Y, that could give you $50,000 and each takes about an hour, it's no brainer which project you should focus on. Uh, I admit sometimes this gets a little complicated, but like I said, with some practice, you can start assessing this more clearly. And this is an important practice that I learned as well. It made a huge difference in creating the financial breakthrough I had in 1 year in 1995. Um, the breakthroughs come with consistent application. Breakthroughs almost never occur overnight. Insights occur overnight, but breakthroughs come with consistent application. You have to take your insight or whatever you learn or whatever great idea you have and really apply it on a day-to-day basis. If you don't do that, then you tend to forget it, and your brain also tends to forget it. It doesn't make the connections you need to make in order to create a breakthrough. So I hope that makes sense. This is a lovely picture of me by the Trevi Fountain in Italy. It's a trip I took while I was taking my time off uh, quite a long time ago. And I got a taste of a great lifestyle. It's a picture of me in Maui, and quite a great way to live. And I want to emphasize, it's really one of the most satisfying things about that time frame was that the hard work that I put in 2005, I mean, sorry, 1995. I really worked my butt off in that year, but I was very clear that the return was going to be great, and I was willing to do that on a day-to-day basis. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't very, there wasn't a lot of suffering. Let me put it that way. A lot of people work hard, but there's suffering behind it. It's long-term suffering. What I had was what I call short-term suffering, which is the good kind of stress or suffering that you need to go through in order to learn stuff and develop yourself and grow yourself. And so, as you practice some of the techniques that I'm going to be talking about here, one of the things you learn is the distinction between long-term suffering and quick-term suffering, short-term suffering. Short-term suffering usually leads to long-term joy. Long-term suffering leads to short spurts of joy every once in a while. So I hope that gets true for you. So in 2001, started coaching others full time, and one of the results I had was I worked with two really great people. Worked with quite a number of people at that time, and I started really coaching in 1991. A lot of it was part time back then, but 2001 is when I started coaching full time. Charlotte Jacobs was one of the person I work with. Charlotte's still in business today. She tripled her income in about 90 days of working with me. The lessons that she learned from me, she still teaches other people in her program. She's today with Jesse, her husband. She's an award-winning $1 million mentor. I mean, she's making quite a lot of money, and she has a great lifestyle. I'm so proud of her. One of the best things that I ever saw in her life and she still has today is that she takes great vacations with her children. She has a great lifestyle. She has plenty of free time, which she devotes to her kids. And it's really great to watch. Rob Ross is another realtor I've worked with. And again, applying all the techniques and principles I'm going to talk about here, these are some of the results that we produce. And, Rob had a 40% increase in income, and he's still doing really well. Really great guy, really great people to work with. But, it kind of went all to, I would say, the proverbial crapper in 2009. Had a huge breakdown. And this is, again, a good lesson for you all because, I forgot the lessons myself. And I made some business decisions without really exploring the target market very well. I didn't, again, I did plan, but I didn't quite follow through on the plan because I got a little lazy. I should say a little arrogant myself. I forgot about some of the focus practices, and I certainly forgot to mitigate risk versus return on investment in some of the projects that I took on. But the one new lesson that I learned was that anybody, including myself, could recover from any kind of setback. And this is an important thing that I want to impart to you. These are lessons that I didn't learn cheaply. These were expensive lessons, but they not only left a good scar on me, but they taught me a couple of important things on how to recover. Because if you can learn to recover from any kind of breakdown, you can learn to focus. And that's an important thing to understand. Because a lot of people will train you how to focus, but they won't train you how to recover from breakdowns. Well, primarily because the truth is they're rather bad at it themselves. the best way of training yourself to recover from breakdowns is when you've gone through utter, complete disasters and failures yourself. You've gone through some crisis, you've gone through some financial crisis, perhaps, but you've learned to recover. That's really where you learn to focus. And I'm not saying you have to have a crisis in your life, but the lessons that I learned certainly helped in recovering. And I hope that you understand this, because if you apply these principles that I'm going to share very soon here, you will gain. I promise you'll gain the ability to focus very well. Okay. So I became determined, obsessed with how to market for more income, and this is the more important thing, with less time and less stress. So one of the things I did was connected with Bill to pool resources and make an impact. And that's what we started to do. I found that it was certainly a good return on investment working with Bill. I saw where we could really leverage our strengths and mitigate our weaknesses, and really could create a solid program for people that's par none out there. I haven't seen a program that Bill and I like the one Bill and I have. And that comes with really looking at return on investment and planning and strategizing well. So the second breakthrough, this gives you an idea of the profit. These are profits in percentage. 2012, it was about 90%, so I made a little bit of a loss. But 2013, I was climbing up, and this year is quite a sweet year, actually, for both Bill and I. The greatest relevant breakthrough, though, is in my calendar. Now, if you look at my calendar, you'll already see some of the practices that I apply when I schedule myself. You notice that there's a lot of free time on my calendar. And this was from a couple of weeks ago. I had to change it a little bit to protect the names of my clients. But this is pretty much what I did, and I scheduled for the week of November 16th. But you see, one of the salient things you'll notice that it looks like a very clean calendar. There's no double bookings, etc. But the other thing is there's a lot of blank space on the calendar, and that's important to have, because if you have blank space, then you really have a structure for freedom. Because you cannot have freedom, really, I would assert, with a full and packed calendar. You can only have freedom when you have blank space in your calendar and you're accounting for your appointments and your projects, because you have to account for your projects, and your tasks, etc. But you also want to account for your free time. If you can't measure your free time like you do on a calendar, then it's very difficult to measure if you're really truly attaining freedom or not. And this, I would say, is really why I love my life. I love what I do. I love my coaching. It's not always pretty, but that's part of what I like about it, because it's challenging when it's not pretty, and that's what helps me grow. And I enjoy and I revel in that. But I also love and appreciate my free time. And if you look at this, you'll see that there's actually about an average about 20 to 25 hours of free time. By free time, I mean choice time. And a lot of times I choose to work because I enjoy working. But I also have time. For example, if you look at the calendar, for a movie, to do some actual marketing strategic work, to have lunch with my wife, Glenda. And I have intentions here. If you look at the calendar, there are some clear intentions of what I want to do. This is a client appointment. The intention is to generate a breakthrough in hiring for him, because he was having issues with hiring some new people that he wanted on the team. So, this is really where the rubber meets the road for me, is making sure that the time I create is really relevant. So, there's a smorgasbord of some of the things that occupy my time. I spend time with my wife as she goes horse riding, and that was her former horse, Angel, a while back. But this is time with family. I spend time with my Congressman Sam Farr. I have a group here in Santa Cruz that we work towards ending hunger by lobbying the U.S. government, and I work with Representative Sam Farr, my congressman, from time to time to do that. But having freedom of time is what affords me to do this. And this is important to impart to you. You have to have a good enough reason to really reduce your overwhelm. Most people are addicted to overwhelm because there's no really good reason to reduce it. You have to find a good reason. And I hope this picture here gives you a sense of what you can create in your own life, what you want in your own life, what's the big deal about trying to manage your time better if you don't know what you're going to do with that free time. So again, these are some of the recent breakthroughs. But the main thing I want to share with you is it came back even stronger than before. And this is important to understand as well. And like my admin, Sue Sauer says, you rose like a phoenix out of the ashes. She told me this about a couple of months ago. And that's the important thing, is learning how to recover. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to show you our complete plan today. But a plan will not work unless you handle some basics. We will cover 2 of these basics today before I show you our complete plan. Now, in our 1-year VIP program, we'll cover all the basics, but today I'm going to show you at least 2 of these basics here. Okay. So 2 of the basics are: 1, how to stay out of unnecessary overwhelm, and 2, the practices to develop satisfaction and results daily. Okay. So these are some of the ABCs of how to do that. So how to stay out of overwhelm. There are 3 parts to this. I'm going to talk about your brain and expectations. I'm going to talk about more oxygen in the future. Number 3, I'm going to talk about consistent dialogue. These are 3 of the things that we do in our program, and I've done it myself, and I've done with other people. My wife practices this. She's an artist, but she still practices it and still makes a difference for her. A lot of artists tend to resist structure, but she's learned to embrace it, and very, very proud of how she's moved forward. So your brain and expectations. Again, there are 3 subparts to this. And I'm going to cover 3 of these here pretty soon. The first is man's got to know his limitations. This is from Clint Eastwood's movie. I think it was actually Dirty Harry. But a man's got to know his limitations. What I'm talking about here is the limitations of the brain. Most of your brain functions are performed by the part of your brain just where your forehead is. So if you rub your hand over your forehead right now, that's the area of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC. Now, one thing that we know from science right now, from latest brain science research in the last 8 years or so, is that every time you make a decision, your blood glucose level drops. Every time you switch from one task to another, your blood glucose level drops. Now, these are minute drops. Sometimes they're larger drops. But every time your glucose level drops, it does a couple of things. One is it actually indicates to your brain that something drastic may be happening, like you may be running away from a saber-toothed tiger or something. And so what it does is it shuts down some of your more basic thinking functions. So so it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for most day-to-day work, like analyzing stuff, trying to remember stuff, recalling memories, etc. It wants to shut that down so it can devote more resources to you running away, screaming, and trying to avoid the saber-toothed tiger. Unfortunately, we still have that mechanism in our brain. And so every time you try to multitask, or you try to do too many things, or you're making too many decisions in a day, your blood glucose level drops and it starts impairing your brain functions. So you got to understand your limitations. A lot of people try to go past it, force themselves through it, and it doesn't put them at the peak performance of their brain. And it's not a good way to really run your business when you're trying to multitask too much. You can multitask maybe to a certain point, but if you're multitasking to the point where your results are suffering, then I'd say you're not using your brain in the most effective manner. What has this got to do with marketing? Well, if you're running too many marketing projects at the same time, you're trying to do too many things, if you're trying to if you sign up to too many programs, etc., trying to do all that at the same time, you're probably going to burn yourself out. And this directly, I underline it again, directly affects your ability to run your business. So I want to build your awareness here. If you're doing more than 4 or 5 things or 8 things a day on your to-do list, you're probably burning yourself out, and you're probably setting up unrealistic expectations that are going to set up yourself for a failure. So you want to really, really, really get this clear, that there's some optimal number of projects that you have, that your biology will permit you to have. Now, in the course of working with people, I develop a very keen sense to gauge how much people can really handle. And my clients benefit from this. And they even tell me this, that it's really in the dialogue with a coach or someone external that you get to see what your capacities really are and where you're bluffing yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you can't stretch yourself a little bit, but you got to know how far to stretch yourself in order to be effective. All right. So next thing, dopamine monsters. So dopamine is a lovely chemical in your brain. It's released because from evolution, what it serves is to tell you that you're on the right track to do something. Unfortunately, it doesn't work today in our non-survival, non-jungle kind of business kind of work that we do. So what happens is when you set up unrealistic expectations and you fail to meet them, your dopamine levels go down. In fact, they spiral down quite badly. The reverse occurs when you set up realistic expectations for your day or your week or your month, and you meet them. Even if they are what I call simple, stupid expectations, and you meet them, guess what happens to your dopamine? They spiral upwards. That creates even more energy for you, and you get a lot more done. So it's very important to learn how to manage your dopamine, is what I'm trying to say here. Okay. So there's a practice I want to give to you, which has worked. This has worked very well in my own life. Has worked for many of my clients who have chosen to do it. And it's called the rule of four. And the rule of four is very simple. From science and from performance science, even way before brain science was coming to the fore, we know that our optimal number of projects that we can work on is about between 4 to 7. It's actually closer probably to 4 than 7, to be honest with you. For most people, based on my observations of people, what we've seen, we studied our clients for about a couple of years back, and we found that the optimal number of projects was about 4. If you exceed 4, you typically get about 0, close to 0 on an average over a year done. Now, repeat it again. If you exceed 4, you're statistically moving towards 0 being done on a daily basis on an average. Okay, but if you do 4 or less, you'll typically get about a huge percentage, about 80% done by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, assuming you start about 9 a.m. I think it's 2 o'clock. I mean, I've forgotten my exact stats. But the point is, if you want to try and aim for that rule of 4 practices, or so 4 projects per day maximum, and you got to gauge, of course, the complexity of those projects. Sometimes it may only be 2 or 1. But if you follow the rule of 4, then you're on your way to being more effective. So how to stay out of overwhelm? A couple of things here. Again, you want to put more oxygen in the future. And you want to look further out. A lot of people, when they do their planning, they only look at the next day or the next week. So what happens is they take the stuff they didn't get done today, and guess where they move it? To the next day. And so your future looks like this, the same old stuff. Some of you have to-do lists that probably go back to the time of the pharaohs. And I want to assure you that you probably want to get rid of that to-do list because it's not serving you anymore. And what you want to look at is looking further out to the future. Where do you want to be? What are the goals and objectives you want to go to? Most people never get to long-term goals. That's why they never fulfill in their resolutions, because they don't spend enough time on the future, looking to the future, looking towards long-term objectives rather than just the short-term objectives. Now, I understand some of you may be under the gun, maybe trying to make money, etc. You want to handle that as quickly as possible so you can start focusing more on the future. I'm more interested in your second year and your fifth year. The first year is going to be great, but the second year and the fifth year, if you do the foundation right, is where things are going to be even more sweet for you. But if you don't create your foundation for the long term, you're probably not going to get to the long term. Very important to learn. You got to learn how to do consistent dialogue. Our brains are social. Most of us, even people who are lone wolves or introverts. I'm an introvert myself, but I've learned to do consistent dialogue with someone else. Bill and I talk almost every day. I talk to my coach very often, and he and I, we strategize and we make sure that I'm on track. It's that consistent dialogue that makes sure that you can fine-tune your strategy, your plan. Make sure that you get rid of projects that don't make sense anymore. especially in your long term. You also want to have dialogue so you can move past any kind of impasse. If you're stuck in a decision, if you're trying to decide which kind of technology to buy, those are the things that can kill you over time, especially kill your future because you're trying to deal with the short term again rather than deal with the long term. Okay. Now, even if you are a solopreneur, there are ways that you want to create your life or structure your life so that you can have more time to focus on the future. That's important to learn. It's one of the first things that I started learning from my first coach, my great mentor. He really taught me how to focus on the long term. And if you're not spending X number of hours in dealing with the long term or generating or creating the long term or imagining even what it looks like, then it's not a very joyful business, I would assert. You want to create a joyful business where you keep looking at the long term because the short term is always going to have challenges, no matter how you do it, no matter what you do. Even if you're wealthy, you're still going to have challenges in the short term. The trick is to always look at the long term. Okay, and consistent dialogue is how you keep putting your mind on the future. And part of the benefits of that dialogue too is you get consistent fine tuning in your plan. You know you're on track, not no longer confused. Overwhelm comes from being confused whether you're really on track or not. A lot of people spend their time, well, should I really do this or should I not do this? Well, if you're clear about your future, that question of what you should focus on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis becomes clearer. Like I said, it works well for lone wolves and introverts too. Statistically, the more conversations you have, the less chance you have for what I call avoidable failures, things that you should have seen, you should have witnessed, you should have been ahead of the curve for. Sometimes it's hard to see when you're a lone wolf, but when you have a coach or someone looking over your shoulder with you, then it's a less chance again for avoidable failures. Okay, our complete plan. I want to cover this with you. There are 3 phases. Again, I want to warn you. This complete plan is for the professionals amongst you. And I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just saying if you want to move from being an amateur to a professional, these are the things that you want to look at. There are 3 phases. The first phase, you want to optimize your current cash flow. Now that means it's a little bit of short term here that we want to do. So the clients, we do this. We work with them to optimize their current cash flow. See how we can really take some low-hanging fruit for you. Things that are easy to focus on to create some return on investment. You want to design and make your sales funnel a system that consistently engages your audience and turns them into clients, paying clients preferably. You want to build a foundation for content marketing. What this means is, you're building a set of habits for creating content organically, preferably because that's the easiest way to do it without paying lots of money. The downside is it may take a little longer, but the upside is once you have it down, your articles and the content, the video, and the other stuff that you create is going to be like soldiers working for you 24 hours and 7 days a week. Each of these articles is going to attract somebody to come to your site and engage with you. And it's important to build a foundation now. The longer you delay it, the longer you'll have to wait for your business to develop. The second phase, you want to plan and create foundations for the launch in the third phase. The planning and creating the foundations for launching or launching a campaign or a marketing campaign in phase 3 takes a bit of time and energy. So if you don't organize and plan for it, it's very tough to run a good, solid, organized, professional marketing campaign. The second thing we do is you continue building out your articles and ramp up so that Google starts noticing you. We want Google to notice you, and it usually takes a bit of time. So you got to start ramping up your articles or your content generation. Now, are there other kinds of marketing, social media, etc.? Yes, we work with you to do that. But what we found is if you do the content, that content feeds very well into your social media. If you decide to do paid marketing for any reason, then you have a solid engine behind that. Because if you have good content and you can direct your traffic, even if it's paid traffic to your content, then you got to build content. There's no way around it, and people like good content when they come and they engage with you. So you want to make sure you do that. Okay, so that's the second phase. The third phase is executing your marketing launch and creating the breakthrough for traffic. What this means is that you accelerate your content creation so that you create a really solid breakthrough in the third phase. Now, each of these phases, in our estimate, takes about 4 months. So you got to be a little patient about it. It takes a bit of time. Those of you who want overnight results, like I'm saying, probably not going to happen. But you got to look honestly to yourself. If you want overnight results and you're trying to get overnight results for a while and it's not working for you, then you may want to maybe take a time out and reflect and look and see, okay, maybe I need a more concerted, organized, more organic way of doing this. That's more akin. It's going to take into account what my lifestyle is, what my daily focus abilities are, and what's realistic for me to really attain, instead of trying to go for the quick fix. Uh, so I've been there too. I've tried quick fixes too. But I can tell you, even especially in the world of internet marketing, you want to plan. You want to really take the time to really look and see what's important, who your target markets are, build out that sales funnel, make sure it's designed well so you can fine tune it as you go along. It's very important to learn to do. So what you need to learn, these are some of the things that you need to learn. I'm going to itemize this. I'm not trying to overwhelm you here, but I'm just trying to really tell you what the truth is. A couple of things here, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you want to design a sustainable sales engine. You want to learn how to plan logically and realistically. And if you think that you already have this down, then I would really urge you to look at your results. And your results are not there, then probably the plan is not working for you. You want to learn how to execute a plan with flexibility. You want to use the rule of four, and you want to learn how to set up realistic expectations every day. So one of the practices I want to really share with you is if you start out the day, you may start out your day with maybe meditation or looking the day, etc., and relaxing with a cup of tea. But you also the next thing you want to do is look at the plan for the day and see if it's realistic and see if you have the rule of four expressed and if it's going to work overall for you. And that's important to learn how to do. Um, you want to build critical success and leader traits. Now, with the rule of four, there's several practices that you want to learn how to do. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are things that you got to learn how to do, and it comes with practice. If you're practicing it on a daily basis and you're dialoguing about these practices on a daily basis, it's going to start reinforcing for you very, very, very well. You also want to learn to not tolerate being stuck. If you're stuck in a decision and you're trying to figure out what to do, now sometimes it's very complicated, I understand, but you want to learn how to make decisions, especially for decisions that should be made fast. Technology decisions sometimes, often actually, I would say, need to be made a lot faster than what you think. You want to build lifestyle balance and profit. Again, this comes with practice, especially with the rule of four. You want to include part of the objectives maybe is to make sure that your lifestyle and your balance has an objective in one of those four objectives for the day or for the month or for the week. And the most important thing is to look out to the future and start building your foundation for year 2 and year 5. Year 1 could be a good year, like I said, but I want you to look at creating a great year in year 2 and maybe a huge breakthrough in year 5. And that's more interesting. You see, that keeps you alive and enthusiastic in the midst of the certain breakdowns and challenges that are about to come up in your short term. Tactics you will need to learn. Build content that attracts traffic. Build your engagement machine. How engagement and conversion are two different things in my world. Engagement is where you engage your audience to engage with you. They sign up for your email list. They sign up for your free reports. They email you with requests and questions. You want to build conversion as well. Conversion is where people convert into actual paying clients. So you want to have a sales funnel that actually works to do that for you. If you don't have one, it's not working well, that may be part of why you're overwhelmed. See, so you got to create a system that does that for you. You want to learn to have effective sales conversations where you are learning to be in another person's world. I'm not going to cover this much at all on this call, but that's certainly a skill that you got to learn that will help you cut down your overwhelm too. A lot of overwhelm occurs because your conversion rates are not very good. So you're spending a lot of time and energy maybe in the wrong market, or if you're in the right market, you're not effectively converting. You've got to learn how to do that. You got to write great, compelling copy and learn how to do that as well. A lot of these are tied or interwoven with each other, but you got to learn these skills in order to cut down your time spent in work, or learn to delegate it to people. My experience though is, you as a business owner or someone running your department, perhaps you still got to learn how to do all these so you can guide other people and hold into account. Again, you got to learn to assess return on investment versus risk. See, I invest in a lot of coaching programs in my life because I'm very picky about who I work with, but still, I look at it as a return on investment. I just paid for a coaching program because I looked at the return, and I spent about $20,000 in it. I've made more than four times the return on it recently, in about 3 months or less. And you see, that's where I look from, is how to make a return on investment. Sometimes it may take 3 months, sometimes it might take a year, but I want to look at return on investment in not just investment my money, but also the investment my time. Okay. So I don't know why you came here today necessarily, but I think some of you are tired of trying different marketing tactics without a clear vision. Some of you are tired of being overwhelmed, feeling stuck. I know some of you have told me that. A lot of you are wanting to feel clear and confident about the steps, and I know some of you already talked to me about wanting to talk to me about this, and I'll share an opportunity with you, which is our free gift here in a second. And you want to feel confident on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. It's not just, there's this feeling of clear and confidence sometimes goes up and down, and you want to have the more or less steady, clear, confident. I know not every day is going to be great, but at least you want to have a steady build of greatness, right? And I know deep down in your heart, excuse me, deep down in your heart, you know that you have the capability to get things done. And all that may be missing is a solid, customized plan with a sensitive but realistic dialogue partner or coach to guide your way to success. And I say this is your time, and you want to do it in your style. And you want to do it in a way that's customized to you, because that's what's going to make sense. See, if you try to adopt something from a book or from just a seminar, it's probably not going to work. You need to really customize it. This is something I learned in 1991. I learned it very quickly that I had to customize. I tried reading all the books I had out at that time, but they weren't really working well for me. I knew I had to customize this and have dialogue to adapt some of these basic business principles to my own life and my own lifestyle, the kind of time that I had to devote to business to make things happen. So what I advocate is, you want to get a system that works for you, a system that is customized to what you need, your circumstances, your target market, your desired levels of goals. So you've got to define the game, the score you desire, how you win the game, and get a plan to get over the hurdles that you have. If you don't change the direction that you're going into, you may end up where you're heading. Some people don't have a direction, so you can only imagine where they could head to. You want to start defining the direction and make it very clear and something you're willing to commit to. So what we're offering today, and our free gift for today we're offering, is a free, very influential person VIP strategy session. And there are very limited seats for this. I'm already filled up. I'm pretty much filled up for next week and part of the week after. So we are doing this only for a limited time. And so to get your seat on this strategy session, you actually have to apply for it. So you want to apply for the session by going to www.yourvipss.com. And what we do on this session is we'll help you create a 1-year plan customized to you to uplevel your market audience and also get sales going for you. So again, that website is www.yourvipss.com. Okay, and again, this session is, in this session, you want to find out what your gap is, where you want to be and where you are now. And Bill and I are committed that you close this gap as soon as possible. If you're overwhelmed, if you're stuck, if you're spinning your wheels, you're not clear, there could be some things that you haven't identified. Could be some blind spots that you haven't seen, that may need someone experienced like us who can give you a professional assessment of what this gap is and how you can close it. Your opportunity to take action and turn the business around decisively occurs. This is something you got to learn to be decisive. When you grab the opportunity to turn a business around, something that there is a risk involved always. I'll be honest with you. There's a risk of time, etc. But you also got to look at the return on investment. You got to be determined to make sure you get a good return on investment. But I think you also, if you're ambitious and you want to really grow your business, you got to look at the 2 year and the 5 year time frame. And you want to start planning for it. So this session, the Your VIP SS, is designed for that. And my invitation is to sign up for this or to apply for this session. Go to Your VIP SS to get it. In the session, again, we'll go over your biggest challenges and roadblocks. We help you clarify your vision, plan, strategy, and skills required to set you in motion towards your goals. We'll give you professional recommendations. This is completely free. There's no charge to apply and no charge for the session itself, but you need to fill out the application form with the relevant details and make sure you fill out the good details in there. There's no pressure to buy anything. The intention is to get clarity in the right direction. The difference is committed action and urgency. So you want to really learn to take committed action and be urgent in your approach to life rather than coming from emergency or a lack of urgency. So emergency is when you're panicking all the time or you're overwhelmed all the time. Urgency is where you're looking to see where you can get the highest leverage. And like I'm so glad I did that session with my coach way back in 1991. I want to invite you to make sure you go to this website, yourvipss.com, and apply for our session today. Just want to cover a couple of questions here. Again, some questions just came over. The strategy session, someone asked, is the strategy session over the phone? Yes, it is over the phone. It's typically about an hour length. We can also do Skype, and if you need to meet face-to-face, it's possible we can make that happen, but usually almost all the time it's done over the phone. Other question here is, how can the rule of 4 be applied to marketing and personal stuff? Oh, it's a good question. When you select your 4 objectives or less, it doesn't have to be 4, by the way, just as long as 4 or less. Even if you come up with 2, that's really great, because there's less to focus on. It means you're going to get high quality outcomes for the day. But what I encourage people to do is to look not just in their business objectives, but look at your personal objectives as well. So it's a total of 4 for your business as well as your personal objectives, because your brain doesn't distinguish between what kind of objectives. Your brain resources, like I described earlier, you want to distribute them evenly over your personal as well as your business objectives. That's a good question. Thank you for that. Let's see. So you do the rule of 4 for a month, week, and year? Yes, you do. Now that gets a little complicated and it'll take a long time to explain. So that's why I don't do it on the webinars. Like I said, there's a lot of details that we cover in the coaching program. But in the coaching program, over time, we build people up. We start with a daily rule of 4, and then we build up to the daily and weekly, and then we look at daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. That's when it gets really sweet, because you can really see how well you're on track. And if you're off track, how you can get, how the things that you can quickly do to get back on track. It gets you out of your head and puts your mind focused and present with the clients and with your business, and that's where your head needs to be, and with your family and everything else, not in worry and anxiety. Can you help with webinar design and sales? Yes, we do that as well. I can help you with the copy on your webinars, develop your webinars, etc. A webinar or your marketing doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to have certain elements in there that are designed to find your best clients. You want to work with the clients that are going to be attracted by that, and a lot of that has to do with your copy and also the thinking behind the copy. Do you have a good strategy? Are you targeting the right clients, etc.? Do you work with other social media? Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. We help you do Twitter marketing as well as Facebook marketing, and we can help you with that as well. But like I said, content marketing, content is king, still is. You need to have your content developed regardless of whether you do any other social media marketing that you do. Okay. All right, great. So I want to really take this time to thank you all for the opportunity to share with you. Yeah, so I want to really thank you for the opportunity to do that. And it's been my pleasure to share this with you today. I understand some of you and what you're dealing with in your overwhelm, and I want to assure you that there is a good chance that you can reduce your overwhelm. And but it takes the practices. Somewhere you have to pay the price or the investment, so to speak. You have to invest your time. So my invitation to you is really invest your time. And the best way to invest your time is really to come talk to us. Apply on the your VIPSS, fill out that form, and we'll talk and we'll help you through to get clear on some of your questions that you have. All right, great. So I look forward to speaking with you. You guys have a great Friday, and we'll talk again very soon. Thank you, and have a great day.